You know, one thing I've tried to do throughout the Charlie Kirk shooting is remind myself that I don't know everything, nobody knows everything, and we may not know the entire story ever. But there are some things that are clear to me that I believe are facts. And even though I believe they're facts, I also want to look at it from every possible angle. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do in this video specifically, because I think the whole idea that this was some kind of an inside job is actually blown to smithereens, for lack of better words, whenever I break down what is actually going on in some of these individual frames. I mean, there are absolutely viral videos going around. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off of Charlie's name. Some of these people actually knew him personally. Now, I never try to guess people's intentions. That's really hard to do, to be totally honest with you. But when I see some of the claims that are being validated by so-called journalists with no verifiable proof, it really makes me question what their intentions actually are. My goal is to bring you what I think is the truth here. And so I encourage you to watch the video. If you can't watch it all in one segment, totally fine. Break it up, whatever you need to do. But I want to hear your opinion. Just watch all the way through. That way you get the entire context and everything that I'm going to talk about in this video. Whatever your opinion is, leave it down below. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, here's one of the more viral claims going around right now. And that is that his microphone, Charlie's microphone, was indeed the gun or some kind of explosive device that actually took his life. Not a 30-06, not a rifle, not Tyler Robinson, but it was actually an internal device in his microphone. Now, of course, I have to be very careful about what we show here on YouTube, so I'm going to do some still frames and, you know, mix it in with some videos, but obviously, you know, it's going to be pretty docile, comparatively speaking, and, you know, that's fine because you're going to be able to get the idea of what I'm talking about here anyways. And so that's the route we're going to go here. But let's pretend that it was an explosive device on his microphone. Now, keep in mind where that microphone is. It is opposite the side of where the entrance wound, or what we're told the entrance wound, actually is. If that explosive device, or if it was some type of, you know, gun or something like that, the obvious issue that you're going to see here, one of the very first things is, well, if it comes from his opposite side, then there's going to have to be some kind of entrance wound that we would have seen along with the exit wound. You don't see that. At very least, what you will see with something really up close, even handguns and stuff will do this, is you'll see like soot and burn marks. Now, if you don't see it on Charlie, you would certainly see it on the t-shirt, right? He's wearing a white Freedom t-shirt. That actually clarifies a lot of what we're seeing here. Because it is a white t-shirt, we're able to see details that if he was wearing a dark shirt, we may have never known, right? These theories could have just continued forever, really. But essentially, because he's wearing a white t-shirt, we clearly see there's no soot, there's no holes that go through his shirt, there's no holes that go through him that we can see here. To me, this kind of rips this whole theory apart that, oh, he, you know, somebody in his team rigged him up with an explosive microphone. Now, another common theory that's going around is there's no autopsy report. Why don't we have that information? Well, it is Utah state law that an autopsy is performed anytime there's a homicide. So just because we don't have the results back, and just because everything was done super quickly, doesn't automatically mean that no autopsy was performed. Like I said, by state law, it doesn't matter what the family wanted. There has to be one performed. So that's one that I just kind of want to lay to rest there, right? Unless they're just, you know, breaking the law and the doctors are in on this whole thing too, then an autopsy has to be done. So there's that. Now, the other thing people are saying is there's no way that's a 30-06 round because it would have you would have absolutely had some kind of exit wound. Now, unfortunately, we haven't gotten the full report from what happened to Charlie, okay? That's just the facts. But TPUSA spokesperson Andrew Colvert came out and said that, hey, I talked to the doctor to see, you know, where was this bullet? And it was found inside of Charlie, up against the skin, down towards the base of his neck. One thing you gotta remember, and I actually found this pretty interesting, is that in a lot of these cases, upwards of 58%, there is no exit wound. You know, and even if the vast majority of these are done with handguns, it just proves that there's not always an exit wound. Actually, I found a really interesting article. There's an orthopedic trauma report that states that specifically wounds in the neck don't produce an exit wound a lot of the times. You have a lot of course, you know, very critical structure right here in the neck, carotid arteries, and you have a really dense bone and tissue area to protect that. And then of course beyond that you have the mandible, the vertebrae, a lot of bone, a lot of things that can cause bullets that, you know, may yaw on their own, right? Like I've said plenty of times, sometimes you'll just be punching paper and bullets will yaw. I mean, they just do weird things. And then once they hit all of that, you know, obviously those bullets can then, you know, break apart, they can tumble. And so you almost automatically think, oh, there's just going to be an exit wound, because I watched it this one time on a video when a lot of these reports, and it's not just this one orthopedic trauma report, there's several reports that actually show this. So that is something very important to remember when you're looking at this footage. Remember how I talked about how cameras don't really do a lot of justice. Now, the cameras that were around Charlie have become a center of controversy as well. I want to touch on that really quick because I think it's important. We know from people close to this situation, and fortunately it wasn't live streamed, by the way, because he will live stream these events. This one was not. But we know that there was like 2 cameras behind him, 1 camera in front of them. All of this was captured in 4K. I don't think you'll ever see this footage. I really don't. But the reports of the guy like running in and getting the SD card, grabbing that footage, have caused a lot of controversy. Actually, I think death threats towards this guy as well. Now you got to remember what we saw just before that. People grabbing hats off of Charlie's table moments after what they just saw and throwing them out to the crowd, essentially stealing from a man that just lost his life. It's a pretty disgusting display, right? And poor timing, poor judgment on that guy's part, specifically the clip I'm thinking of. But either way, right? If you now know, oh, holy crap, this footage, you know, if somebody gets a hold of it, they're like, dude, I could sell this footage, I could leak this footage. So for them to go in and gather that evidence very quickly, I think was the smartest thing for them to do. I don't think that points to a cover-up because we all saw it. It's not like those were the only cameras running that day. We saw it from every angle you could possibly see it from. Now, yes, it's in higher quality. Yes, if you are covering this and you want absolute clarity, you would want to see it, right? To kind of, it may even put a lot of this to rest, but out of respect, I don't know if I'd want to see it. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I think I saw enough. But either way, I think what he did was the smartest thing you could do, and the FBI has that footage, by the way. So it's not like, oh, they're just holding on to it because they're in on the conspiracy too. Now here's one that was sent over to me from a viewer, right? He emailed me. He wanted me to give him some credit, so I will. Hollow Soul, I really appreciate you taking the time to send this over to me. But essentially, what he said was, hey, look at this video because it clearly looks like there's a guy ducking and then what clearly looks like a muzzle flash going off. So I take a look at the video, and this is strikingly similar to what I covered last year with the Thomas Crooks shooting, where President Trump almost lost his life in a very similar manner, where people were like, oh, hey, look, there's a flash in the window in like the adjacent building to where Crooks was. Now, again, I understand people's need to be skeptical. I think being skeptical is smart, right? When we've been lied to about JFK, 9/11, COVID, Iraq, Afghanistan, the list goes on and on, right? I mean, the amount of things we've been lied to about. But I also want you to think, and I believe in this case, everything's too clear. It's almost hard to believe that we're getting the truth, but fortunately we don't have to just depend on the government telling us whatever we want to hear or whatever they think we want to hear. We have enough video proof of what happened. And so anytime you see these flashes, first of all, if you notice the guy, he's like ducking like a few times before what looks like a muzzle flash actually goes off. To me, it looks like he's sitting up high enough where he's trying to get a glimpse at Charlie. He's holding his phone. That's what it looks like he's doing. Now people are going to bring up, oh, well, if he couldn't see Charlie from that distance, then there's no way the shooter could have from a longer distance. But when you look at this angle specifically, you can clearly tell that the shooter had a good line of sight. Regardless, this muzzle flash, first of all, if it was that close to the window, then I believe we would have seen more reactions come from that side, because that's got to be extremely close to that group of people right there for them not to notice. There's a clip I found of an officer that was kind of doing overwatch of the crowd, and people were like, oh, he couldn't see the shooter, so clearly it's not Tyler Robinson. Well, he's looking down at the crowd, right? He's kind of giving oversight. One thing you have to remember too is a lot of videos are now doctored. Because they've removed a vast majority of the original videos, now we're depending on other people uploading them. And if you don't believe me, there's a lot of doctored videos. I'm sure somebody's done a comparison at some point now with the original videos to some of these more AI generated videos. They did it on the day of with the picture we got of Tyler Robinson, where they're like, oh, look, this isn't the same guy, but it was an AI picture, right? It was, they cleaned it up and nothing matched up with the original picture. Regardless, I think what we're seeing here more likely than not is some kind of flash, because you see multiple bits of flash in that window before the main muzzle flash goes off. That tells me it's maybe a camera flash when the sun actually hits, because everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are holding their cell phones. So when the sun even hits the back of a camera, if it hits the front of your smartphone, it reflects. If it was just one single muzzle flash or one single flash, then yeah, okay, that looks suspicious. But when there's multiple going off in that same frame, it doesn't tell me there's a muzzle flash. And I think people would have reacted with it being that close to them. If it's close enough where the flash can be seen in the reflection of the mirror or the glass, then certainly it would have been close enough where some of these people would have noticed. Maybe that cop that was up top in the loft. Remember, people were protesting up above Charlie too, so maybe that cop was there for that reasoning as well. I don't know, I had never seen that footage. But either way, you would think, oh, well, maybe he would have recognized the threat, and then we would have got another angle of that, of, maybe the cop chasing this guy down or something like that. And maybe the implication is, oh, he had foreknowledge of what was about to happen. The precise timing of that would be absolutely insane. Remember, people respond to like a supersonic crack from a round or anything startling in like 2 to 3/10 of a second. It's very quick, reaction to things like that. And then the great cover-up, right? Why haven't we seen footage of Tyler Robinson getting on the roof? Well, remember, that footage of him getting off the roof was released on September 10th, the day of. They were trying to find out who this person is. Now, and I think it's a reasonable question to be honest with you, but now we haven't really gotten any new footage from that, and certainly they have it. Now, I kind of question why we don't have HD footage, because according to some people, these are like brand new cameras. They should be in HD. That's a separate thing. But now I think because they're trying to build this capital case against this guy, I don't know how much more footage you will see. I think that would answer a lot of questions, to be totally honest with you. I think it would be good for the public to see that. And when it comes out in court, I believe we do need to see that footage. But maybe they think it hurts the prosecution in some way. There's just some things I can't answer. But all I know is that footage was released before he was caught, and so that's why I think that. And then, the text messages. People are like, why would he lay it out so perfectly? I even thought this. I'm like, man, that's really weird. But you got to remember, 90, or I think it's like 88 to 92% of people that are involved in situations like this, somebody knows beforehand. So the fact that he laid it out there to his boyfriend, I don't know that it really surprises me that much. Some of these people think, oh, I'm some kind of martyr and what I did was fantastic and whatever. And there's reports that he wanted to take his own life. So maybe he didn't think it mattered. Hey, I'll incriminate myself. Here you go. So weird. Yes. Does that mean that, the FBI made it up? No. Plus the carrier has those reports too. They have that text messaging data as well. So now, just think about the amount of people that have to be in on this specifically for this kind of supposed cover-up to work. You have to have the phone carriers. You have to have Tyler Robinson, who's probably going to get the death penalty, so I don't see how it works out for him too well. His parents, the police officer that convinced him to turn himself in, his boyfriend. Then you have to have maybe a second shooter, maybe a spotter, maybe, I don't know, maybe not, probably not. But you would have to have people that surveyed the scene prior to that. Then you'd have to have crime scene techs that are in on it, emergency personnel. Charlie's team would have to be in on it, right? Remember, people that really love Charlie. I mean, some of these people that were around him, their job was to pretty much, die for him, in which I believed a lot of them would. The surgeons, they would have to be in on it. The team that is in the FBI, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, President Trump himself apparently, J.D. Vance, local police department, coroner's office, somebody to lie and say that maybe they did do an autopsy when they really didn't, so more medical personnel, then the Utah State Police Department, then the campus security, Erica Kirk, TPUSA, and supposedly Israel as well, conspiring all in this massive plot. What is more likely? That a guy radicalized by the left took his ideology to Charlie Kirk, took his life, instead of trying to debate those ideas because those ideas are so weak they just fall apart. So is that easier to believe that some whack job coward took the life of Charlie Kirk, or that dozens and dozens and dozens of people were in on this conspiracy to take his life? I don't know. My logic tells me that it is definitely this whack job left-wing lunatic. That's just me though. Let me know your opinion down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.